Good evening. I'm Cathy Lewis. We are taping this broadcast on Thursday, the day the House is expected to begin looking at the economic rescue plan. I'll have a final thought in tonight's broadcast about those deliberations, which are very much linked to our subject tonight. Hampton Roads drivers got some sobering news a few weeks back. There doesn't seem to be enough money to repair the Jordan Bridge that connects Chesapeake and Portsmouth, so the city says it has no choice but to close it. It's a big hit for about 7,000 people who drive across that bridge each day. Across the river, though, there's another transportation project taking shape that could be the way of the future. Lisa Godley reports that both developments could spell big changes for the way we get around.
A streamlined locomotive capable of transporting scores of people through downtown Norfolk in a matter of minutes is what Norfolk's new light rail project promises. The system would start at Eastern Virginia Medical School, wind its way through downtown Norfolk, and end at Newtown Road. Some, like Gerald Walker, are hopeful that once Norfolk's line is up and running, Virginia Beach will latch on. Walker says he's supported the idea of this kind of mass transit system for Hampton Roads for years.
I thought that a rail system was a great way to alleviate some of our traffic flow problems, even back in '99, and since then it's gotten really ridiculous in Hampton Roads as far as getting from A to B and dealing with the traffic on a daily basis.
Walker recently joined dozens of others at a transportation meeting in Virginia Beach to hear what the future may hold.
When we're done here, this thing won't cost you any more than it costs for an HRT bus. So if you've been on there, take your HRT bus, get on the train, and enjoy the ride.
City leaders from Virginia Beach and Norfolk joined representatives from Hampton Roads Transit to discuss the possibilities and later answer questions. Reed Greenman, the Transportation Committee chairman for the Virginia Beach Taxpayers Alliance, had plenty of them.
When we invest our tax dollars, we get the best bang for the buck. And we have really bad traffic congestion, and we need to do something about that. Now, we only have a limited amount of funds, so my concern was how many cars is this going to take off the road along 264, and what's it going to do to reduce traffic congestion? They said the best case scenario would be 3,000 a day. And then there was no indication on how many how much traffic congestion will be built because they reduced the number of lanes in Norfolk because they're going to drive this right down the city streets and take those lanes away. So how much more congestion are we going to get as a result of that?
Still others are concerned that a train that runs mostly on the ground and crosses city streets could endanger lives. HRT representatives were quick to point out that the people and vehicles in this simulation were much closer to the train than they would be in reality. They also pointed out that the trains would not be moving as fast. One thing is certain, state lawmakers agree that light rail is something that needs to be studied and studied carefully. They recently passed a bill indicating just that.
That bill did pass and was signed by the governor. That bill recognizes that light rail in Virginia Beach would be in the public interest, and it directs HRT and the city of Virginia Beach to look for funds to do the required environmental research on any rail proposal.
Several other Hampton Roads cities are also taking a hard look at linking up with the Norfolk system. There's the possibility of a connection in Portsmouth, extensions into Chesapeake, and maybe even running a line along Jefferson Avenue on the peninsula. Meanwhile, thousands of commuters in Norfolk are excited that they'll be able to ride the tide in early 2010. But there's another issue generating just as much disappointment among commuters: the inevitable closing of the state's oldest operating bridge. Chesapeake city leaders say they have no choice but to close the Jordan Bridge for safety reasons. They say it would cost close to $20 million to make the needed repairs. The closure could force as many as 4,000 vehicles onto other roads during rush hour. Some residents, like Frank Lilly, say closing the bridge is the wrong move. Lilly recently told members of the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission that he's met with civic leagues in both Portsmouth and Chesapeake who are adamantly opposed to closing the 80-year-old structure.
But we think this critical elements that are being found on the bridge right now can be repaired. The bridge is basically in sections that can be floated down, and there could be some kind of private-public partnership. It's just the options are not being explored fully, and this is a vital link to our area and our community. It's unfortunate that we're on the opposite side of the table from the city on this one, but we think it's, we just think this is too important to the regional transportation.
Our inspectors found a number of deficiencies with the bridge that they have stated if they're not corrected within the next 12 months, the bridge needs to be closed. And digging a little deeper into that discussion, though, we've determined that even with rehab of those critical items, we can't continue to guarantee the safe operation of the bridge in the long term.
Closing the Gilmerton Bridge is a must because of safety, but there's no denying the horrific impact that all of this will have on commuter traffic, especially with the Gilmerton reduced to 2 lanes due to reconstruction. According to a study prepared for the Hampton Roads Metropolitan Planning Organization, this is what we can expect during rush hour. An additional 1,400 vehicles at the high-rise bridge. The expected backup? 1 mile. At the downtown tunnel, we'll see an additional 4,000 vehicles. The backup there, 3 miles. All this will force an additional 1,000 cars to use the Midtown tunnel and back up traffic almost 4 miles. This will also impact HRBT traffic, adding an extra 250 vehicles, resulting in a 3.7-mile backup. As one person expressed to me at a recent transportation meeting, what many of us now see as a bad situation is about to get a whole lot worse. For What Matters, I'm Lisa Godley.
The Gilmerton and the Jordan are only 2 of the timely transportation infrastructure issues Hampton Roads has to deal with. There is, of course, light rail as well, and we're happy to have with us tonight several of the people who are working on the bridges and on light rail. Dwight Farmer is the new executive director of the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. He was appointed upon the retirement of Art Collins, and he has served the HRPDC for 30 years. Earl Sorey is the acting city engineer for the city of Chesapeake, and Randy Wright represents Ward 5 on the Norfolk City Council. He's been a passionate advocate for a light rail all along. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. Nice to have you here. Mr. Sorey, you are the acting engineer. Timing is everything, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What a time to be the acting engineer, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
What's going on with what were your engineers seeing in the bridge that caused them such concern? And how do we read these reports? Because they can be quite frightening.
They're extremely technical in nature. You know, a bridge of this type, any bridge that is weight restricted, is required by law to be inspected annually. The annual inspection for the Jordan Bridge was conducted earlier this spring, and it revealed a number of critical elements that the consultant determined would need to be either fixed within the next 12 months or that the bridge should be closed to vehicular traffic.
And so you have this option to fix within the next 12 months, but that, of course, takes money.
It takes quite a deal of money, and as we dug into it a little deeper, we really came to the realization that the bridge at 80 years old and with the ongoing deteriorating condition really is to the point that rehab would have to be by virtue of replacement. So that
really what you need to do is replace it,
That's
not
correct.
rehab it.
Yes, ma'am.
Then, of course, the options are what? I mean, when you're talking about replacing a bridge in this economic environment, and the bridge is owned by the city, so it is the city's
correct.
deal, isn't it?
At this point, it has been the city's deal. You know, it's certainly beyond an individual city's ability to fund and finance a major bridge replacement.
And how much are we talking about to replace it?
It could certainly be upwards of $300 million, and I think the price would go up from there depending on how much work was done on the Portsmouth side.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to think about this because there was an engineer who's written about this who said, you know, I don't understand this because that's $300 million for a 2 to 4 lane bridge. They rebuilt that I-35 bridge in Minneapolis. They put it in a year and a half, 10 lanes, 235 to 50, something like that. So why is this bridge more, and what was happening there that can't happen here?
Well, the benchmark that we have in the region is the Gilmerton Bridge. That's scheduled to be advertised for construction in February of next year. That bridge itself is 70 years old. The current construction estimate for the bridge is $186 million. By the time you add in the additional preliminary engineering, things of that nature, you're pushing $200 million. So with that said, and knowing that there would have to be significant roadway work done on the Portsmouth side, $300 million is probably a reasonable estimate.
But as you... In that case, that bridge collapsed. So was that a situation where there were federal funds brought to bear on the situation?
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is different than what we have here. Dwight Farmer, as you look at the prospect of a closure of the Jordan Bridge, that's 7,000 people, many of whom use that bridge to get back and forth to work in the course of the day. where are they going to go?
Well, some of them will go as far away as the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel or push other folks to use. Many will go to the downtown and the midtown and the high-rise bridge. And really, those few extra cars, because it's only 7,000, say only 7,000 compared to nearly 100,000 at the downtown tunnel, it'll be measurably worse because it's already bad. But our concern really is when Mr. Sori and his team have to move on with, in VDOT with the Gilmerton Bridge reconstruction. And right now, because of lack of right-of-way and the tightness of the area to work in, VDOT will have to take that bridge down to 2 lanes. And
Gilmerton.
The Gilmerton.
Yeah.
So the loss of half the capacity, where there's currently about 35,000 vehicles a day, is going to have some very, very serious consequences on all of those other facilities, particularly downtown and midtown.
And in Lisa's report, she looked at some of those additional cars that will be on the roads and what the impact will be in terms of waiting time. Yes. And I know the 30 years you've been looking at these kinds of issues, those wait times and the loss of productivity, I can't imagine that the business community isn't beginning to take a look at that and say, do we really want people sitting in traffic that long?
Well, I think that the consequences are going to have serious implications on people's patterns and on business and how business operates, and I think it really portends the future of it. So I think things will change.
Do you see any other option but to close this bridge, as Mr. Sori has decided or determined?
A lot of people have asked that question, and we have gone on and off the record with some options that really are pretty ugly, is the only way to put it. You have to do some things that you really wouldn't want to do. You know, we talked about trying to get the Midtown Tunnel, extra 2 tubes in, you know, get some other improvements in before, you know, we shut down the Jordan and close 2 of the 4 lanes at the Gilmerton. But if you do those things, the cost of the projects, as Earl has talked about, will go up significantly. So you're between a rock and a hard spot here. You're gonna inconvenience people one way or the other, and you could look back and say, well, we should have done so and so. But you know, Chesapeake, to its credit, kept this bridge going a long time. Funds are drying up, and the Gilmerton needs to be repaired. We can't put it off.
And Mr. Sori, the plans at the moment call for, by the latest, at the end of the year for this bridge to be closed. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the deal is that it costs so much to take it out that for now you'd just like to close it, not let people use it anymore. Is that right?
That's correct. You know, we plan to move forward with the closure prior to the onset of the winter months. Yeah. You know, following that, you know, the Coast Guard has indicated that once the bridge is closed to traffic, the structure would have to be removed. There's an entire environmental process that we will have to go through regarding the removal of the bridge, and certainly there will be a cost involved with that, as well as the actual demolition.
So this is all probably going to be happening sometime in, there are public hearings, and there are a number of them underway and have been for some time. But this will probably transpire long before 2010, when light rail is scheduled to come on board, which won't certainly have an immediate impact here. But Randy Wright, when you look at the degree of interest that people are now having in light rail, certainly in Virginia Beach and other places that you hadn't anticipated previously, that has to be pretty exciting for you.
Well, you know, it's an idea whose time has come, and we were talking briefly before that when this thing surfaced for about the 3rd time back in the late 90s, it was difficult being a visionary at that stage, and there were very few people in the city or in the region that thought that Norfolk was going to be successful in being able to put together the FFGA, the federal funding, which is the main component of the funding mechanisms that are involved in it. But having said that, there has been tremendous regional support at the HRT level, which is a Regional Transportation Commission. Yeah, I mean, they have been unanimous vote after unanimous vote in supporting Norfolk all the way through this thing.
What we should put in perspective for people is that many years ago there was a referendum in Virginia Beach to determine whether Virginia Beach was interested in being part of this project. And I think the vote was something, what, 55, 45?
55% against it, 45% for it, and the vote was in November of 1999. So we're looking at virtually exactly 9 years ago.
Yeah, but that's why this spur at the moment is as short as it is. I think the original expectation was that it would go on, and now Virginia Beach seems to at least begin expressing some interest.
I think that in fact, I know there is a lot of support out there now to extend the line as quickly as reasonably feasible into Virginia Beach and probably all the way to the ocean front. You know, and as I tell people, in 1999, Norfolk didn't have MacArthur Center, Norfolk didn't have a cruise terminal, Norfolk didn't have the Granby Street activeness that's there today, Virginia Beach didn't have a town center, and Virginia Beach didn't have a state-of-the-art convention center where they have difficulty getting hoteliers from the hotel to the convention center. So it just all spells that the timing is right for the project that we're building now, the Tide.
And you've also had some preliminary interest from Portsmouth, I think, in Chesapeake, or
Portsmouth. I mean, everybody.
And it came up in the Suffolk mayor's
on board.
race.
But you said something at the beginning that separates this from all the other transportation issues. We're going to be able to build this within 2 years. There is no other fix, or even I should change the word to fix, from fix to a Band-Aid, of any effectiveness that isn't years down the road. Whether it's the third crossing, whether it's bridge replacement, those type things, they're not going to happen within 24 months. It's just not possible. But what we can do is build the rail, and we expect to have 15,000 riders a day. So that will help alleviate some of the congestion.
And the other rail lines that have opened in recent memory have exceeded their expectations pretty spectacularly, and one would hope the same thing will happen here.
Charlotte opened in December of last year, and today they're already exceeding their 10-year projections, and we're going to have identically the same vehicle that Charlotte has. We were able to piggyback onto their purchase, and we got a good purchase price on it.
72% of this project comes from the federal government. State money's 15%. The cities have got about 13% skin in the game. But there's some concern about that in terms of cost overruns. And I know that you and your colleagues on City Council have really been trying to get some answers out of HRT about where these projects are from the perspective of cost overruns. And I'm sure you can't help but watch this bailout conversation and not think people are going to be very, very interested in making sure the city's protected.
Well, we know unequivocally that it's going to cost us more than that. We know that. What we're trying to do right now, and unfortunately I was not able to be at the meeting, or I could have answered some of the questions that went unanswered, because as I say, you know, if you look at it in terms of a pair of pants, I'm the only one that's got a leg in both sides. So I sit on HRT, I sit on City Council, and know more about it than anybody else, other than bureaucratically speaking. So, but there are risk costs that we're still trying to determine. And you know, there's three funding mechanisms. First, there's the budget. Second, there's the city side of what the city needs are, and third within that is the risk costs. And so once we've got our arms around all of that, meaning particularly the third part, which we're doing now. I spent 2 hours yesterday and 2 hours this morning going over the numbers, and we've got a pretty good grasp of it. But we still don't know when you're dealing with the under the streets of the city of Norfolk, not anybody can say without equivocation that it's going to cost X dollars. We get the best estimates that we can.
But the city's on the hook for that.
That's exactly right.
Dwight Farmer, as you think about light rail from a regional perspective, what are the prospects that you see, and could light rail make a difference in some of these issues that we've been talking about, growing numbers of cars on the road and all the rest of it?
Well, time is right to be considering these things, and there's no question, Cathy. We need to be doing things differently in transportation infrastructure investment. The motoring public is going to have to look at changes because of the change in the urban fabric, the intensity of development. Our options are running out. Energy is at an all-time high, probably expected to get higher. So the other thing that probably doesn't get talked about, Randy and I talked about this from time to time, is business opportunities at those activity centers that he mentioned. All of those business opportunities will be served well by these types of investments, rather than just continue to look only at roadway construction. So,
but it does require a different way of thinking about all of that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, and I've had discussions years ago with Michael Towns about
who's the
how to fund
president of HRT, executive director, sorry.
How to fund stations, and I think those are activity centers and retail centers with lots of investment there.
So, coming back to our bridge problem, because this all sounds very exciting for 2010, and you know, I'll admit I was one who thought mall downtown Norfolk, that's not going to work. So Randy Wright, I'm not saying that this time. I'm going to believe it when I see it, and it'll be spectacular. But I wonder about this this issue about the bridge, because that really is a short-term, coming up here at the end of the year situation. There's already a toll on the bridge now. You know, I guess the most immediate thought would be, can we build something else and toll it to the degree that would pay for it? Would the toll be just extraordinarily prohibitive?
In all likelihood, it would. You know, even your better performing toll facilities typically only cover roughly 1/3 of the capital cost. So you know, you still have to come up with, in this case, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars.
So what are you hearing from people about this? I'm guessing that you're hearing a thing or two from people on this point.
Absolutely, and there's a great deal of concern from the community, and particularly from the South Norfolk community. You know, this bridge is certainly near and dear to their heart. You know, it's certainly a historic structure. You know, there's a lot of people that live in that general area that commute perhaps to the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and you know, this is certainly going to make their daily commute much more difficult.
What will it mean for somebody, for instance, who lives in South Norfolk and commutes to the shipyard in terms of additional time on the route? I guess that depends on what alternate route you take.
Well, the alternates are the high-rise bridge, possibly, or the downtown tunnel. Well, the backups today are roughly a mile to a mile and a half. We're forecasting with the Gilmerton construction going to in excess of 3-mile backups during the peak hours. So the alternates are not just the mileage. The alternates and the loss of capacity are going to mean an extra half an hour in the morning. You could be looking at 1 hour commutes to get across that Elizabeth River during this construction period for the Gilmerton.
While the Gilmerton is being
with the Jordan down, easily.
So as you think about this, is there any possibility to, I know y'all thought of all these ideas, they're just occurring to me. Is there any way to say, look, we've got hurricane evacuation situation here. I mean, we saw what happened when the Midtown was closed.
Absolutely. We need the capacity on a daily basis, and for those extraordinary events, catastrophic events, we go to the feds and we tell them this story, but you know, they run out of money. The General Assembly hasn't got the money there. It's a tough situation.
It is tough indeed, and I wish we could resolve it in 30 minutes, but I suspect we won't do it. My thanks to all of you for being with us tonight, though, and we'll continue to keep an eye on this and continue to report back on these town hall meetings that are taking place on those prospects. So we'll continue to keep an eye on it. I'll be back in a moment with a final thought. The Jordan and the Gilmerton bridges are literally where the rubber meets the road, and those rubber and road moments are coming more frequently all over the country. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates that the nation's bridges are in need of $180 billion in repairs. $180 billion. We're talking about a $700 billion bailout. So this week's drama over that bailout or rescue plan or investment, depending on your perspective, threatens next year's highway bill, which was already expected to be an uphill battle. Oh, and by the way, it's not just the highway bill that comes up next year. The FAA is looking to make long-needed improvements to airport technology. No trouble in our airports. Railroad maintenance will cost almost as much as bridges. And then there's the Water Resources Development Act, which deals with levees. But surely nothing will happen if we put that off for a little while. Our infrastructure is literally crumbling, and the fear among those who are sounding the call is that the bailout will push the infrastructure agenda off the back burner and into the crock pot. And that's why the events of this week are so momentous. As we record this broadcast, the Senate has produced a plan, and the House now gets another chance to deal with the issue. Citizens are angry, and they're frightened, and they feel powerless to stop what we're being told is a financial Pearl Harbor. It's scary enough that the supposed experts are all over the map on the issue. First, we're told to expect economic cataclysm if the bill doesn't pass. Then the bill doesn't pass, and the market rebounds in a big way. Then there's the fact that 8 in 10 congressional representatives don't have formal training in finance or economics or business. But you don't have to have a degree in business to exercise common sense. And common sense would have told most of us that when you're putting a deal together, it's probably not a good idea to poke a stick in the eye of the very people you're trying to negotiate with, as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi did with her ill-timed and unnecessary remarks earlier in the week. But the bad behavior was compounded by multiple statements that 12 members were so offended by Speaker Pelosi's remarks that they threatened to pull their support for the bill, whose passage, we were told, was absolutely critical to saving the American economy and averting a worldwide financial crisis. On this deal, it seems bad behavior is the only thing that was truly bipartisan. So if they haven't dealt with the bill already as you watch this broadcast, I might offer a few words of advice to the House leaders. Speaker Pelosi, keep your mouth shut. Minority Leader Boehner, grow up. The kind of behavior we witnessed this week is not worthy of the faith, trust, and confidence the voters place in you. However you vote, be sure your vote places the interests of the American people above your prospects for re-election, because angry, scared people who are watching their financial security slip away are not to be trifled with, and they can smell disingenuous pandering a mile away. If you have any words of advice for us or comments on any of our broadcasts, you can send them to us at whatmatters@whro.org. You can write to us at 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia, 23505. You can call us at 889-9437, and you can join the conversation at our website. That's whatmatters.tv, and that's where you can also sign up for a little thing we're calling an e-bit, which will let you know what we're working on each week. You can also watch this or any other of our broadcasts right there online. Thanks for watching. Next week, What Matters is the health of the Elizabeth River. Some really exciting developments there. So I hope you'll join us next Friday night for What Matters. We'll see you then.